Welcome on to the 2022-2023 AFC South Preview. I'm your host, Matt Gannon, as always from jerseywaybetting.com, from fantasypoints.com. And today we are going to be talking AFC South, and I'm joined by a very special guest. Doesn't really need a big introduction. You guys all know who he is, Content King, one of the staples of Twitter as a whole, and that's Pat Mayo. Pat, thank you for joining me this morning.
Yeah, man. Let's talk some AFC South. Fun division.
Very fun division, and it's such a question mark every single year. Like any of these teams could just catch lightning in a bottle. We saw the Jaguars in what was that 2019 almost make it to the Super Bowl out of nowhere. And if any of these teams do it, okay, no one would be surprised.
I'm with you. And it could be Jacksonville again.
And we'll get there because it very well could be Jacksonville again. So let's take a look at the division from last year. Obviously, Tennessee won this division at 12-5. They were just a one seed kind of out of nowhere. When you look back at the season, I'm like, how was the Titans the one seed last year? But they were. So Titans 1 seed, 12-5. They lost in the divisional round, followed by Indianapolis 9-8. Kind of blew it late, as we know. Carson Wentz versus that game was just stupid. I think it was in Jacksonville. They just. I kept live betting them all right, plus 9.5, plus 15, they're going to come back. And they just lost by 30. That was ridiculous. Houston 4-13. We know what we're getting from them. And then Jacksonville at 3-14. So how did the division last year kind of pan out how you thought it would?
I thought that the Colts would be better than they were. I'm with you. I was surprised to see the Titans end up. They were a fraudulent one seed, as we found out. That team. I don't know. You could tell me they go 7-10, 10-7. It always seems like they're on the outlier in terms of. I spoke about this on my show a little bit earlier that people's bets were under 9.5 Titans. It's I see it. That's what I would pick if I was doing a win total. But Tennessee just has a weird way of just grinding out wins every year. It's when you look at all of their cores, whether it be the defensive back, the defensive line, the offensive line, everything outside of running back is weirdly mediocre and average, but sometimes being average across the board is good enough.
Yeah, being average across the board, pop in one category, like we say with our golfers all the time. It's a similar formula that seems to have been making sense for the Titans, and they've been doing it year after year, just being average, sneaking into the playoffs, and then just throwing a dud in the playoffs, because that's not how you're going to win in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, Tennessee was the favorite again this year at plus 170. I mean, actually, Indianapolis is the favorite at around minus 135. Tennessee is second at plus 170, followed by Jacksonville and Houston. You can get Houston at around 30-1. Don't bet that. I'll book that for you if you want to play. If you want to place that. But so let's get into the division. We'll start with the Titans. And like I said on the bottom, is it a new formula or more the same Derrick Henry or bust? Because how much longer can this get by for them?
It's funny, the addition of Robert Woods and Austin Hooper, I think are a little bit underrated. Yeah, they lose A.J. Brown. That sucks. That's not good for anyone, especially Ryan Tannehill. But
right,
when you think about the epitome of average, I think Robert Woods is obviously above average. But the one thing you need to look at in terms of the enhancement of Derrick Henry, Robert Woods is probably the best outside blocker at receiver of anyone in football. That is always when he signed that giant contract with the Rams. Yep. It's the other teams who weren't Buffalo, they were the only team that knew this. And then you start digging into the stats, you watch the games. It's oh yeah, Robert Woods seals that edge pretty well. It's almost I don't know if he's as good as old school T.O., who never really gets talked about as how good he was at sealing the outside edge. And now if your game plan is just, hey, let's run Derrick Henry 25 times, have the defense be competent, you're just going to see a lot of 24-20, 23-27 type games with the Titans. And when you have Derrick Henry who can ice you games or break off that huge run, and the fact they still give him the ball when he's trailing, if they can do a better job of working off play action this year than they did a year ago. Obviously, they felt the loss of Arthur Smith a lot, but now Treylon Burks needs to be good. So far, that doesn't seem to be the case, but it's the preseason. Didn't we go through this with Jamar Chase last season? Not to say that he's Jamar Chase level.
Right, I know what you're saying.
But yes. When we show up to week one, he's 6 for 84 and 2 touchdowns. It's going to be oh yeah, he was a first round pick. Maybe
makes sense.
Maybe we should have saw him play in a game first.
Are you worried about Robert Woods' ACL? Because I mean, I'm sure he's fine. I mean, recovery is recovery now, but there's definitely a little bit of a question mark. Like, what will his workload be coming out of the gates? Will they come out? I will not be surprised at all if they come out the gates a little slow, like as a team, because I think they're due for some natural regression as it stands, because they won so many close games last year. That's just due to turn.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about the Raiders, especially with their division. It's just with this division in particular, just the AFC outside of this division is so strong, at least on paper, coming into the year, that there's just a lot of losses around, especially from being the number 1 seed, that you end up with the Bills, you end up with the Chiefs, and you end up with, I guess it would be the Bengals won the division. So then you end up with the Bengals. And that's not a great scenario for the Titans. That could be 0-3, but it's a stupid Titans, so it could be 3-0. So who knows? I would say that Tennessee is one of the more difficult teams to figure out and project, because everything will point to, like you said, natural regression, unders, but I feel like it points to that every year with them. And I'm not concerned about Robert Woods. I think we've seen enough history now over the past half decade with ACL injuries. You give someone 10 months, they're basically back to exactly where they were now.
Right. And stats, I feel like stats for this division, you could just throw out the window, because this division every year, like I said, is just so unpredictable, so wild. That's why I'm happy you pick. When I said, what division you want to do? AFC South. I'm like, this division is crazy. There's so much that can happen. And everything that we do say could be completely false. And everyone would be like, that kind of checks out. It's the AFC South. So yeah, this division is super wonky. I don't think the Titans will do it again this year. So let's jump into the next team, Indianapolis Colts. And how far can Matt Ryan take this team? Because I feel like the one thing they were really missing was elite quarterback play down the stretch. And that's how it kind of panned out.
Well, if you don't have elite quarterback play, the one thing you can do is go get a not elite quarterback. That's going to fix all your problems. Here's the issue with Matt Ryan. Is he an upgrade over Carson Wentz? Absolutely. However, when you go look and rewatch Carson Wentz's season from a year ago, he got basically as lucky as you're going to get as a quarterback, be it with fumbles that go out of bounds, dropped interceptions, just no consequences for terrible decisions, that he played so far over his skis that Matt Ryan's upside is essentially what they got out of Carson Wentz last year, even though he's a much better quarterback. So if Matt Ryan just plays to his baseline and just say neutral luck, no good luck, no bad luck, just neutral, he's Carson Wentz from last year, despite being a much better quarterback. So that's my issue with the Colts, is that it felt like even though they collapsed late in the season, they probably should have made the playoffs, that they actually could have been a lot worse if you looked at how Carson Wentz actually played. So I'm kind of on the fence about them as well. I think they're a bit overrated. If Jonathan Taylor doesn't have a historic season again, what does their offense really look like? I know Michael Pittman, alpha receiver. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's just Michael Pittman, and he's good. And maybe you're looking at like 80 catches for 1,200 yards. That's fine. Like, is it going to be Pierce? Is it going to be Mo Alley Cox who steps up here? Like, I don't know. It seems like a pretty flimsy team. Probably good enough. Like, they're the rightful favorites in this division. I mean, although you could make them plus 100, make Tennessee plus 100 and flip a coin who you'd want to take. But I do think that there's the chance that you look up at the end of the year and the Colts are 7-10, 6-11. You could say the same thing, and they could be 12-5. Like, they have such a wide range of outcomes. Like, if Matt Ryan has a positively fortunate plays baseline, has the Carson Wentz luck, yeah, they could be 12-5, no problem. 13-4. But if he has bad luck, and it kind of runs the opposite for them this year, they have one substantial injury to their offensive line. And that's something they were dealing with very early in the season, and getting through it were these offensive line injuries where they were so stacked.
Right.
I'm just not in on the Colts. This feels like the division to take a shot if you're going to take one. Versus some of the other
ones. And that's the AFC South every year, like we keep saying. But the Colts seem to be like the flavor of the week for everyone in the AFC South and like the AFC. Like the Colts, it could be the Colts year. I definitely can see it, and I think that Matt Ryan is going to be better than expected, because what he did, he's coming to a team with, I guess, a feasible offensive line and a elite running game. I would say actually an elite running game. So he didn't have that in Atlanta for X amount of years, and now he does. I know he's older. I know he's not Matt Ryan MVP, but he's got it. He got by in Atlanta. he wasn't great, obviously. He got by in Atlanta with nothing really, and I feel like now he's got some more pieces. You're gonna call me crazy. I'm so high on Paris Campbell. I need to find my way to Paris Campbell props because he's always been that guy, that little slot, that X factor who have a 30-point fantasy game twice a year, something like that. But I feel like he's taking the next step, gonna get a higher role, and I feel like he is a legit like receiver. And I'm just gonna find my way. I'm not gonna take like Paris Campbell most receiving yards. I gotta find my way into Paris Campbell props like throughout the season. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna draft him in fantasy, and I think he's gonna have. I think he's gonna be a name that we're gonna come back to week 16 to have like a top 5 receiving season. But that's my bold take for the Colts and for the AFC South.
I got bad news about Paris Campbell. There's a certain person who likes Paris Campbell every year. I even mentioned him as comeback player of the year. His name's Tim Andercust. So the unfortunate luck of Paris Campbell might have a direct correlation to Tim liking Paris Campbell.
But are you saying Tim Andercust's one and done champ though? That's what I'm hearing.
No, he came dead last.
I thought he won your one and done.
No.
Oh okay. So maybe my Paris Campbell take is poor, but besides that, Yannick Ngakoue and Stephon Gilmore on the defensive side, that front seven of the Colts was already solid, and now they get Ngakoue. I think there's going to be a boost. I think they're just going to be overall better. Combine that with the Titans' regression. I think this is the Colts division to lose. They're the favorites for a reason. I didn't place any futures on this division, but I don't know if I want to pay minus 150, minus 170 for them to be where I'm seeing. I don't see minus 130 anymore. I think I missed a boat on that. But
no, you go to DraftKings Sportsbook right now.
It's on
you draft
DraftKings.
Yourself a minus 130.
Yeah, I might have to get a little bit down on that. But besides that, I think that wraps up the Colts. This is the division with weird upside, and whoever can do it, I think it's going to be the Colts. So we'll move down to the Houston Texans. What do we want to say about the Houston Texans?
I think they're going to be competent. Not good, obviously. I think they'll be last in the division, but compared to some of the other like really brutal teams, like I think Chicago is going to be the worst team in football. Yeah, they play each other at some point. I think it's like week 6 or something like that. But when you just kind of scan the Texans roster, and they kind of showed it last year, they have competent NFL players. They're not banking on like bad rookies. They're banking on bad veterans, and bad veterans are going to trump bad rookies the entire way down. Like Davis Mills, kind of competent. Like
no, legit.
I'll just go back to your Colts point. Like if you just put Ryan Tannehill on the Colts instead of Carson Wentz, how much better do you think this year's Colts would be than last year's Colts?
Nothing. I mean, a little bit, not much.
But here's the thing: like Tannehill and Matt Ryan at this stage of his career are essentially the same guy.
Yeah, exactly. I think both of those guys are better than Carson Wentz because I know you get those pop plays with Carson Wentz, but like you said, like the luck factor, he's gonna fumble, he's gonna be in the pocket and just drop the ball like multiple times throughout the season. So I take both of them over Carson Wentz with that run game that the Colts have. But like you said with Davis Mills, he's sneaky good. Was he the best rookie quarterback last year? Like
I think so. The comparison I was going to make is everyone likes Mac Jones, but Mac Jones and Davis Mills were pretty comparable.
Right. I think Davis Mills was the best rookie quarterback last year. Was that anyone's projections? Not really. Maybe like one or two guys maybe I saw, but will that sustain on this Texans roster? I don't know. Who is he throwing to? Is Brandon Cooks going to get every single reception after that big deal? Like, I don't know who he's really throwing to, but they don't have many pieces. I think they're going to be the worst team. Over under 4.5 wins. I don't know how I can play the over. I don't know. Texans are nothing for me.
I'm not playing the over under either way. Like, I could see them being over 4 wins. I could see them I could see them being 6-11.
Very fair number, I would say. So yeah. I think if Davis Mills has another solid year, maybe 1 or 2 more solid years, he's going to solidify himself as like a career backup and just get paid forever, like Fitzpatrick type deal. So I think Davis Mills in a good spot. I don't think the Texans will do anything this year. I don't think they're going to be the Jaguars of 2019 that surprised themselves in the AFC Championship. I don't think they have a roster that even close to that team. So we will move on to the final team in the AFC South, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I wrote down major offensive upside. I have a take that I'm going to play Trevor Lawrence to lead the league in passing at 40-1.
That's not a terrible shot. I'd say like Goff is another one you could throw up there of like, I mean, I think Lawrence is better than Goff, obviously, but you need to target teams that have bad defenses and
Exactly this.
force the offenses to always be throwing. So I completely understand that. And I mean, I like, if I was going to make a bet on this division, I don't know if I'm going to get there at Jags plus 750, but that would be the bet, because the bet is Lawrence is actually really good. And now that they've improved the offensive line, given him some skill position players, that their quarterback advantage in this division. That's why I compare Matt Ryan and Ryan Tannehill. I think they're very equivalent at this point of their career, and like they're dead average NFL quarterback. Davis Mills is probably on the lower end in terms of starting quarterbacks, and I think career backup a la, even like Brock Osweiler kicked around for 8 years.
Yeah,
like if he can just
he
be
did
that or a little bit better, like someone you could throw into a game that you could feasibly win out of nowhere, but generally speaking, it's just not going to be all that good. Like Lawrence was a generational talent, pick number 1 coming into last year. Struggled mightily with Urban Meyer as a coach.
Exactly
no
that.
weapons, no offensive line. Well, what if all of a sudden he's actually just the Trevor Lawrence that you thought that he was going to be? He takes a leap year 2, and the Jags are 10-7. 10-7 probably wins this division.
Yes, and I love that, the Urban Meyer thing, because there's a big question mark. People are saying Trevor Lawrence is a bust after 1 year. Was it Trevor Lawrence? Was it Urban Meyer? We don't really know yet. So why am I I'll take a question mark on a 40-1 in the NFL, which is a great number in the NFL. It's not like golf where we get that every week. I'll take that with, I think, legit upside. Evan Ingram, Zay Jones, Chris Kirk, Laquan Treadwell. I know those aren't elite names, but it's better than what he's been working with. And I like the little platoon of James Robinson and Travis Etienne, even though I think Travis Etienne was one of the worst first-round picks in NFL history. Like, I literally think it was. They kind of did that as a favor for Trevor Lawrence. So I like his receiving core. He has upgrade, obviously offensive line upgrade. I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence at 40-1 to lead the league in passing. And I like, if you had to pick one division as a 7.5, 8-1 flyer, Jacksonville is a decent bet.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the long shots for division winners, and like, can you talk yourself into the Pats at 5-1? I guess so. If Tom Brady gets hurt, are the Falcons and Panthers live? Potentially. But there's so many different circumstances that need to break your way. Like, you need to get super lucky. There's just a chance that Trevor Lawrence is so much better than all the other quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And we do know quarterback play is the biggest translator to wins in the NFL, that they could just leap them without anything happening. Now we're not even hedging against Tannehill going down or Matt Ryan going down or key injuries on these other two teams. They could just outright be better than them. It's not likely, but you're getting 7.5-1 on your money to beat two of the teams, because we're really factoring out the Texans here. No one's betting the Texans 30-1. No. So it's funny because although it's 7-1, and I would wager on 7-1 more than likely to win the AFC South, when I look at their win total, it's 6.5, and I'm like, yeah, that's the right number. If they were 4-13, I'm not going to be super stunned, but I do see where the upside comes in. Maybe it's just being enamored with Lawrence's upside that he'll just never hit. But if there's ever a time to make that sort of wager, it's usually on a year 2 quarterback.
I know, I totally agree. And one other thing I took from the Jaguars when deep diving them is, you know how at the end of the season when you see like trends, so-and-so teams were 14-3 to the over this year or something like that. I think if you play the Jaguars overs every single year, every single week, you will net positive. And when I did my MLB preview at the beginning of the season, I thought the same thing with the Phillies. Phillies overs, I bet it every day. I'm up money on Phillies overs. So I think Jags overs are a thing that will net positive. Whether that's slightly positive, it's positive. I think it will turn to green. So I'm probably going to be taking Jags overs every week because their offense, I think, is major upside and the defense is a real issue.
I completely agree. Although, I mean, how you more or less see impact like rookies at the skill positions, but you just never really hear too much about defensive rookies coming in. But like, what if Trayvon Walker's awesome? What if that just happens? And like, he's a real problem for opposing offenses. And all of a sudden they have this pass rush, and a great pass rush can mitigate so many problems in the secondary that if they can actually generate a pass rush with some of these young guys they brought in, these upside elite talents that they now have on the roster, like, I don't think they get back to being Saxonville again, but that defense kind of came out of nowhere with this pass rush that no one really saw. Like, you can point to like, oh yeah, they had Jalen Ramsey. Yeah, he was a great shutdown corner, but it's much easier to be a shutdown corner when the quarterback has 2 seconds to throw the ball.
Exactly. And like you're saying all these names for Jacksonville, like you're kind of selling me on them because the question marks with the Colts. I don't know. I don't know if I'd be able to get there at 7.5, 8-1, but like there's so much upside on this team. Like this team, I feel like this team's gonna go so under their total at 6.5, like win 3 games or win like 10 or 11. Like it's just gonna be floor ceiling type team, which is a good team you want to bet on in a long shot scenario.
Yeah, in this long shot scenario, it's a lot like think about it, consider it like in the golf parlance. So you have something like, let's just take the BMW Championship as an example. You could bet on Joaquin Niemann at 40-1 to win the tournament. Or you can bet on Tony Finau minus 150 to be to finish inside the top 20. Let's say if those were the odds, probably somewhere around there, probably actually even worse, like minus 200. That's essentially the difference between the Colts and the Jags. And every time, you know who we're betting on between those two bets, we're betting on Neiman.
No, 100%. You want, and I wish people would look at it like that because it really makes sense. And we are blessed with golf odds. I think golf odds are horrible. I think they should be much more lower, similar to kind of what they were this week. So I wish people would look at it like that. And I like what you're saying. So I don't know, maybe you're selling me on some Jags futures, but so let's get into this division prediction. How do we think this is going to pan out? I'll give my one first. I think it's going to go Colts, Titans. Actually, maybe Jags. Colts, Texans, Jags, Houston. Are you aligned with me on that, or are you going to change it up?
No, I'll change it up. I'll go Jags, Colts, Titans, Texans.
Okay, it's the upside. I don't hate that at all. So I don't know. We'll see how it pans out. I think it's the Colts to lose. I think they got better in key areas. I know there's some offensive line concerns, but when they're at their healthiest, they are a problem. JT could lead the league in rushing again. So finally, we'll wrap it up with have you made any bets, props, or futures in this AFC South? And if so, or considering any besides Jacksonville?
No, I haven't touched this division as of yet. And I honestly, I'm not huge on tying up my money for 5 months in terms of NFL futures. So I have 4 futures bets in right now. Might get to 5. And if I'm going to hit them, I'm going to hit them hard, big money plays, because I want to get paid out at the end of the season if I feel like I have a true advantage. And I do on the ones, at least I think I do, on the ones that I'm in on so far. I don't know. I think I'd just rather roll over my money on Jags money line week to week rather than bet in the division. Because I'm getting more, it's like compound interest. I'm just getting more return on my money week after week if I am right about this.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a thing because you can always stop doing that when you feel like there's a time to stop. If you're betting a future, put $500 on Jags plus 750 and they shit the bet out at the gate, you're screwed. So yeah, the only thing I think I'm going to get to the Colts minus 130. I think that's a fair number. Especially if it's a coin flip, I'll pay a little bit of the juice for the minus 130. And the one bet I had made was Lawrence lead the league in passing 40-1. I'm not big on player props like that, but when I was deep diving, I'm like, this could really happen. I think if Trevor Lawrence comes out and has a Trevor Lawrence type season, everyone's going to be like, that makes sense. He was the number 1 pick for a reason. He was the best quarterback in the last, 10 years. Like everyone was saying it. And one bad year, who cares? So Trevor Lawrence and then Jags overs is all I'm going to get to in this division for now. So I think that wraps it up. I think we did a good job breaking down the AFC South. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm excited to watch the division. I like watching crappy teams, so I'll end up watching way too many Texans games, but I just find it very fascinating.
Yeah, this is the best division because when the final scores are always 19-16, and we're like, how did these teams even get to these numbers? And it's only the AFC South on Thursday night, and it's week after week. And I feel like every single Thursday night football games is Jags Titans color rush. I feel like it just happens. Every single week Thursday night football color rush. So yeah, that about wraps it up. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is preview 1 of 8. We will be doing all of the divisions. So any questions, you know where to find us. You know where to find Pat. Pat, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me on.
Peace out.